Welcome to episode 104 of Nobody Special.
This episode, we talk about progressive sanctification and genuine theology.
The Gospel Outpost presents Nobody Special. Hey everyone, welcome to Nobody Special, two nobodies talking about the somebody who matters. I'm Danny, the host and chief sinner of Nobody Special.
And I'm Caleb, you're the host of Nobody Special. This is a podcast where two generations of people talk about God, pop culture, politics, and everything in between, all while not taking any of it too seriously.
Hello, Caleb.
Hello.
Hi. Every time we do this intro, I've actually been doing this for the past 20 episodes. In my head, I've been saying... A buttery, flaky crust.
Buttery, flaky crust.
Buttery, fake, because of the commercial where that old guy just can't seem to say it. And both of us have actually gotten pretty good at this, but I do just expect one of us to say, like, hi, I'm the buttery, flaky crust of Nobody Special.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. Caleb, we just got out of a social event, which was really cool for both of us to have even attended. No.
Yes.
Where were we? What were we doing? And how delicious was it?
We were at Cold Stone Creamery. Ice cream.
Uh-huh.
And we were going to a little get-together for people who support Redline Church. Mm-hmm. And they're an awesome church out in Encinitas, California.
Yep. A recent church plant as of August 2019 is when they got started, and it was good to have them back in town. So,
yep.
Yeah.
And we plugged them on the podcast a couple times before this, but...
And we'll do it again now. Please go support Redline Church in Encinitas. They're fantastic. And Pastor Clifton and I... Wow, hold on. That's a sentence... There's some sentences that you don't realize how they sound if I've known him since I've been 5. Like Pastor Clifton and I. Ooh, that is kind of weird. Yeah, Anyway, I've known him since elementary school. His wife, Katie, same thing. Her and I actually went to high school together also. Yeah. Go way back, and it's really... I don't know, man. It's weird.
Yeah.
It's weird. All of us are like, all right. Of our friend group, 3 of us became... church staff or pastors, and one of them became an attorney. So it's like,
wow,
yeah, really
what
weird.
Happened there? Not
sure, something in the water. But yeah. So it was a lot of fun. It's good to catch up on everything they're doing out there. That's I mean, just hearing about those challenges they're facing as kind of a cultural difference. It was kind of cool to hear a bit of that, because there's And probably get into this a bit in the podcast too, but there'd been a ton of assumptions people carry going into a place that you don't think about having to change until those assumptions don't work. Yeah, and he came out of a pretty biblically. Well, I mean, he came out of suburbia in Florida and is planting a church in Encinitas, California. And there's just a bunch of cultural differences between the two that you kind of have to account for and don't understand that you have to account for. And I was even getting challenged by that. It's like, all right, what things am I just assuming, even in children's men? What am I just assuming?
Children's men?
Children's ministry.
There you go.
Kids men.
Don't abbreviate things. It sounds dumb.
No, I'm abbreviating things. So, no, just challenging the assumptions I've held to see if anything is a different or better, if I can do that along the way. I was encouraged and challenged by it, to be honest. Yeah. So, speaking of challenging assumptions, Robert Pattinson's going to be in the movies again, and now we all have to challenge our basic assumption about Robert.
Movies.
Huh?
He's been in the movies.
Yeah, but
Danny has this weird suspicion that everybody hates Robert Pattinson, when I have never heard of that ever.
Oh, I think you might be the minority on that one.
I don't know. I don't think so.
A lot of people, they think Twilight was unforgivable.
You think so?
Yes.
Is that like a joke, or are they serious? I've never heard that.
Really?
I love Robert Pattinson. I've never questioned his acting skills.
How old when did Twilight come out?
When I was 12.
Oh, you would have been in the age range. Did you see Twilight?
No. I mean I've seen them. I watched them because of my sister. I think the first one, and maybe the last one.
People didn't get over the whole sparkly vampire thing.
Yeah.
And they kind of criticized him a ton all throughout those, and then it took him a long time to break that mold. And I actually think at this point he's a phenomenal actor who's done a great job breaking out of that mold, and is doing a new movie that I'm kind of pumped for.
Yeah. And he was in The Lighthouse, a more artsy film. Danny wouldn't know about those.
Nope. Correct.
He tries to stay away from them like they're a freaking virus.
I don't stay away from them. I just don't see them. It's for the same reason I've never been to an In-N-Out. I'm not in the area. Like
Lighthouse, Robert Pattinson, Willem Dafoe, they're Lighthouse Keepers. Just came out, but you know, it's all right. Black and white. 4:3 aspect ratio.
Is it it's square? Not square, but like it's...
Yeah.
Why?
It's filmed like an old movie.
Gotcha.
But,
yeah. I want to contribute to this, and I can't.
I think that he's a great actor.
He's a phenomenal actor.
Yeah. And I've never, ever heard of anybody questioning him ever.
Oh, man.
The Goblet of Fire, he was dope.
Right. But I blame that movie for giving us Twilight.
Think so?
Had he not been killed and had been in the other movies, he wouldn't have gone on to do Twilight. Anyway, the most important thing he's coming out, and actually he's in another movie, but we're not talking about that, is the new Batman movie. A lot of set photos have come out, and even some promotional photos. And Caleb and I personally kind of stoked about the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I haven't spent a ton of time digging into it, but how do you think he'll do?
I think he's going to do great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know
Mm-hmm.
I don't know much besides like seeing him in the costume, but he looks really good in costume.
Mm-hmm.
That costume's dope too.
Mm-hmm.
With the little like things on his arms.
Yeah.
And then like he has it's like the cowl is like a mask, and then he has like a
cowl.
Cowl, not the cow.
Yeah, like he works.
Cowl.
Batman works for Chick-fil-A.
Yes, but it has like this neck thing.
To stamp out injustice.
This neck thing going around it, and it's like not like all the other movies where it's glued to his neck, and it's like this one piece.
Right.
And it's like he can't turn his
head.
Right.
I mean, Christian Bale complained about that. George Clooney complained about that. Val Kilmer complained about that, and Michael Keaton complains like you cannot turn your head in the Batman movie. And actually go back, watch all of those, including the Nolans, that are great. Those are phenomenal movies. But if Batman has to turn and talk to someone, he doesn't. His whole body turns like, yes, Catwoman, I'm over. Oh, so it's over here. Whoa, no, Bane's over here. Catwoman, did you see Bane?
Christopher Nolan's he could actually move his neck. And Ben Affleck's...
Not in the first one.
Ben Affleck's, he can move... The crazy thing about that one is, like, they designed it really well to where, like, it looks like one piece of a cow.
Right.
Except he could, like, still turn his head.
Range of motion.
It still wasn't, like, full human neck motion, but...
I think it was Clooney's. It was so... First of all, that movie, hot garbage. Wow. Batman and Robin. Yeah, no, hot garbage. But
is that the Bat Nipples one?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Whose idea was that?
Joel Schumacher.
Man.
Yeah,
Joel,
man.
Go somewhere else.
Yeah, man. But the whole, it's one of those movies. It might have actually been the first in a Christopher Nolan Batman that the movements are so exaggerated because his face has to be on camera because then it's just a bad shot. And Batman had to turn to look at someone, so he literally has to like move his whole body because like my neck is in the position that it's in.
Yeah.
And I cannot. Like it's really funny.
Has to feel kind of like comforting though, like just. I mean, maybe not. But your neck should feel protected in a bat cowl.
It should, but you should also be able to turn and look at things, especially as a ninja who has to fight crime.
I know, right? Yeah, that's the funny part of that.
It's like, oh boy, if a bad guy gets right in my horse blinder view, then he's going down. But
yeah.
No, I mean, I think Pattinson's going to do a great job.
Yeah.
Personally, I did enjoy Batfleck. I thought he was fine. I thought people criticized that way too much. He did a great job. So I want DC to.
I don't think anyone had a problem
together.
with Batfleck. It was more just
they did it first. They
the
did
whole
it
Martha
first,
thing
you know.
was just like, ooh.
That was at 3 a.m. You know, like, how do we get them to be friends?
We have to pitch this tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I need to come up with something.
At the deadline, I'll fix it after I get it approved. And then it becomes this thing that the studio, the producer's like, no, the Martha connection, solid. It.
Yeah.
I mean, the odd thing is, you know, being a fan of the comics and the stories, I never actually put that together that they're both named Martha.
Why? Why should you have to put that together?
Right. But, like, I never put it together. And then as they did that, I was like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, both named Martha. Huh, that's fun.
Yeah.
And then that became the foundation of their friendship.
Yeah. But Robert Pattinson, he looks dope.
Yeah,
He
absolutely.
Just his face can play the part itself of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. Yes.
I almost said
Did
Bruce
you-
Banner. I was like, which last name am I going with? Let's roll the dice.
Bruce
Something?
Jenner? No.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
yeah. No, that'll be good. I'll go see that. I still have to go see Birds of Prey. I'll do that at some point, too.
Yeah, it's good.
And the Sonic movie and the Star Wars movie. So,
Yeah, you just...
I'm behind.
What is it up with you?
I don't know.
You
I
should
know.
be
I used
able
to
to go
love
see
going
these.
to the movies, and I still do. I gotta find time
I've
to
got like more into it lately, and like I just don't have the money. I'm like, man,
Yeah.
I can't justify spending.
I
I've
think
been
I
like
have
renting
free movie
movies.
tickets, so just go with me.
Yeah, if you would actually come. I offered one night, and he was like, no.
You offered one night. What movie was it? No,
Uncut Gems?
No, I wanted to see Birds of Prey, and you're like, I'm going
No.
with my other friends.
Oh, well,
I'm
yeah,
like,
I did do that.
Ugh. And we can't go see Sonic because it'll kill our friend. So,
Yeah.
so
My
we'll wait for
roommate
that
has
one.
like super weird headaches
Yeah.
in movie theaters. But
And I imagine putting him through a Sonic. I mean, Sonic's got to be hard enough to watch on TV, especially
Yeah.
the games. But
we have a question from a listener.
we a hard pivot. We have a question from a listener.
Yes, we do.
Caleb, do you want to read it? It's from Matthew
Yeah.
H.
Matthew H. We won't reveal his identity, so you can't go and murder him.
Everything
Sorry to
in
break
me
it to you.
is wanting to say his last name right now. Like, it's not for the murder. Sorry, that
Yeah.
sounds like I want him murdered. I don't.
Danny actually knows this guy. I've only met him over podcast questions.
And
but
he wants to meet you, so just
yeah,
come in one
I'd
day.
love to
Yeah.
meet you, Matthew.
Yeah, Matthew.
All right.
Come
Hi.
to the movies with us, Matthew. Like,
Question starting now. Hi. You've now been hied.
oh, what?
And if you're wondering if I just verbed the word hi, the answer is yes. If you're wondering if I've just verbed the word verb, the answer to that would be yes as well. English is weird. Question. Should Christians sin less than non-Christians? In Romans 6-8, Paul seems to say, yeah, I keep sinning, I shouldn't, but I do. Hooray for Jesus. What are your thoughts? Good question. I like this question.
Yeah, so, gosh, it's not that I don't have an answer for this. It's that I have 12 answers for this. So this is like...
Yeah, there's a lot to...
it's a bit of a
unpack.
kid in a theological candy store going on right now.
Yeah.
So, for starters, I would differentiate between the sin as an act and the sin as a nature. I think a fair amount of those passages in Romans are talking about our nature and propensity to sin. We have a sin nature, period. And our struggle in coming to Christ is battling that kind of a sin nature, and it's that thing Christ died on the cross to set us free from, in order to also mean we don't have to sin anymore.
Yep.
We are able to not sin in a grand sense, but in a functionality sense also, it's still really hard. So,
Yeah.
I mean, my quick answer is yes, we should not sin as much, but eventually,
Yeah.
you know, like
My kind of view on this is like, you know, should we, you know, the question is, should we sin less than non-Christians? And I think that the answer is obviously should be yes, but you got to take into account that there's a walk of, me and Danny are going to get into sanctification.
Right.
And like, the definition of a Christian is like even the moment they become a Christian.
Right.
They're a Christian.
Right.
Are they going to be sinning more than a Christian who's been a Christian?
Right.
When he's like 9 years old, probably.
Right.
And so it's kind of like you can't.
Mm-hmm.
The answer is, yeah, we should sin less, but
yeah, I mean,
there's a road to take.
Sure, like gosh, I wasn't gonna even use this example, but we're gonna go for it. I enjoy the imagery of born again. I mean, as Jesus is talking to the man, saying it's like, you must be born again, and as people come to Christ, that is a moment they are born, and that question is kind of the same thing as asking a person who is born, do they still poop their pants?
Right.
The answer is they should do it a lot. Well, I mean, they're going to at first, and the hope is that over time they stop. Now, I think all of us as adults, and for any children that are paying attention to this does occur.
Oh, God.
As an adult, you should poop your pants significantly less than you did as a child. But you still have a sin nature, and sometimes mistakes happen. That's all I'm going to say.
Sometimes you can't make it to the toilet.
Sometimes you can't make it to the toilet. And every adult has that story, and we're not even on topic anymore. We all have that story. Like, is that a good thing? Absolutely not. Should you know better? Absolutely. Does it still happen from time to time? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And by time to time, I mean decades in between.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm not saying, like, once a week, But I think that's kind of this idea of if a person's just come to Christ, they're born again. They're an infant.
Right.
They're not up to solid foods. They're up to spiritual milk. And they're not able to do a thing a person who's been a Christian for 90-plus years of walking out their faith.
Right.
I mean, it's a different...
I mean, I think it's like another kind of form of imagery is I often like see similarities between Christians and dogs. Like a dog, as a puppy, it has its instinct to be a dog, to pee and poop wherever it wants, to bark at things that it wants to challenge, and it's literally in its nature, and we have to train them to not do that, but it's not going to happen immediately.
Yeah.
And it's like eventually they're going to be a great dog, but you got to get work to get them to that point. And it's kind of the same for us. We have this sin nature. It is literally embedded inside all of us.
Right.
To want to do these things.
Right.
And it's just slowly, sacrificing and letting more Jesus into our lives and letting the sin kind of just fall off of us. And
yeah. I mean, Hebrews chapter 5, 11 through 14.
As this, we have much to say, and it is hard to explain, since you have become dull of hearing. For through by this time you ought to be teachers, you need someone to teach you again the basic principles of the oracles of God. You need milk, not solid food. For everyone who lives on milk is unskilled in the word of righteousness, since he is a child. But solid food is for the mature, for those who have their powers of discernment trained by constant practice to distinguish good from evil.
So part of this is explaining that they're a person that's come to Christ or is in kind of the basic stages of their faith, because I do think someone can come to Christ and then not grow for 3 decades because of a lack of kind of discipline or kind of bad shepherding, that kind of stuff. I'm okay throwing that shade. But there comes a point, though, that drinking out of a spiritual bottle is inappropriate based on the maturity of the Christian. At first, they're going to just do the thing they're doing and grow in that. There's some basic things they have to get in as far as, does a Christian do this or do they do this? And partially, I think that's a bad question, but whatever. It's growing in Christ, and I think a lot of times people expect a Christian to be a fully developed Christian immediate, instead of giving them the time to grow according to their faith and extending grace during that process. That is one of the things that I found a good amount of places aren't the best in giving people opportunities and time to grow in their faith, and giving them grace during that process.
Right.
Hey, you're a Christian now. You have to have everything together. I haven't met one dang Christian who has everything together.
Yeah.
And that's it. I'm not claiming it's okay to sin, but it's okay to be in process and to be growing towards Christ. I think it's important to understand that if a person's trending more and more closer to Christ every day, then that is a good trend, and to keep that up.
And it really comes down to intentions, and your intentions should always be, it's never going to always be, but like to try and not sin for, the glory of God.
Right.
And if you're not intentionally doing that, you're going to mess up. But as long as your intentions are focused on God and trying to sacrifice things for Him, that's the goal. And don't let anyone tell you that, just because you messed up once, that you're done for and you can't, you can't get to that place again. It is.
We got to take our hand off the excommunicate button a little. That's not our first weapon. Is like, out of the church, you said a cuss. Like, okay, sorry about that.
Even bigger stuff, like things happen.
Right.
And it's because we are sinful in nature. But, it's just trying to align our focus with God's. And
I think to his question, though, does a Christian not do as many sins? Well, all right, so first of all, and I know I've said this before, so I won't harp on it too much. I think the question, is this a sin, isn't the best question, but the better question is, am I growing in Christ every day? I think that's a better question because it just takes care of the sins. And the idea is progressive sanctification, that a person over time is being purified and made or polished more in the image of Christ, in the image of God, and it's becoming one with Christ.
Right.
Now, this doesn't happen immediate. It is progressive, and I think people drop the progressive part, but it is progressive. I don't come to Christ and I have been sanctified. That isn't that term. That term is... Oh, man. I have to turn my degree back in.
Yeah.
Totally forgot. What is the legal... justified. There we go.
Yeah.
Sorry. That term is justified. That is a switch. A person is justified or they are not, period. A person is sanctified over time. It's a process. And it's a process of coming closer to Christ. And, to be honest, that is part of the reasons I tend to hold, and I feel this is biblical and I'm not apologizing for it, I hold pastors and teachers to different standards than I do congregants. Because partially that's biblical, and partially because they need to have been in the faith for a longer amount of time than a person who just got baptized 2 weeks ago. If a pastor gets up there and starts spouting off a lot of nonsense and says, well, I'm just imperfect. Yeah, but you're also teaching the flock and are a seasoned saint. You need to get it together.
Right.
And that's, I think that's fair. So...
I think sanctification is not primarily sinless. It is primarily growing closer to God.
Right.
And through that, you will find naturally that there will be fruits growing on the vine. That is the point of sanctification. It's not. And I find myself, I do worse in this, in my relationship with Jesus, when I start focusing on the sinless aspect.
Yeah.
And I find that if I'm naturally just reading the Bible, growing closer to God, praying, making sure I'm in community, it is something that just happens naturally. And our church does great. Like, we have this tool. It's called the discipleship journey tool. And it's like, I mean, I wish I could show it. I mean, but it's like it's like a triangle, and it's kind of like the kind of stages of sanctification, and you just kind of use it like every week to track, how am I doing?
Yeah.
And it's not like, how are you doing on, this sin. It's more, how are you doing in your relationship with Christ? How are you doing with being in community, all these different things.
I do think there's a place to talk about that where it needs to be brought up honest, though. That might be the only thing I challenge is there has to be a place a person goes, this is how I'm struggling through sin. Yeah. To be honest about that. But the idea, it isn't to just take a thing out, it's to put Christ in and to ask the question of, okay, in this kind of sin that I keep going to, that I don't know why I keep going to, where did I stop trusting in the gospel in this? And then even to challenge things that need to be challenged. It talks about if my arm causes me to fall into sin, then cut off the arm.
Yeah.
And that can only, that comes on an honest, all right, what is the sin I'm struggling through? And then in what way do I glorify God by going to him instead of to this thing?
Right.
But the overall goal, it isn't to just not do a sin, it's give God the glory.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of a difference in directionality and focus is important.
Yeah, and I think there
is an honesty in talking about it that is very helpful to be honest about the sin, but to not over focus on it. But you have to focus on it to an extent.
Yeah, you can't. And it's probably the hardest thing for me in my walk is the vertical and horizontal relationship. And I find myself, anytime I start focusing on my sin, like I'm not looking at Jesus, and it's not like a mutual thing. And that's probably just me personally. I don't think everyone struggles with that, but so,
there's a balance of bringing it to the cross.
Right.
That because so many people, I get the thing that you're saying. A ton of people, they've approached it as, I have to stop doing this thing in order to approach God, and that's totally false. God already knows about the thing and is saying, bring it to me, I'm better than you, and can totally kill this. So if I'm trying to strive to not strive on my own to not do a sin, I'm going to fail. If I'm striving to be held accountable and to bring my garbage to the cross, then I think that's fine. And I think it's okay to even text people and say, like, hey, I'm in my flesh right now, y'all need to be praying for me or calling me or something, because the struggle's real. I think that is part of being in healthy community.
Right. It's all tied together, and it's like, that's why it's kind of just so difficult. And even just the process as a whole, just kind of shows you that you just can't do it on your own. And it's like, you cannot do anything without God.
Right.
And it's kind of, it's comforting in that sense, but also, I'm very, just want to be in control. And so it's kind of annoying in that sense. But, I think there was this...
God gives two avenues of don't be in control, and we still try and be in control. It's like, first bring it to God, and God's like, absolutely, I'll take that, now get in community. It's like, no, but that's like, I could pretend I was giving it to you. I can't pretend I'm giving it to community. Yeah, I know. It's fun, isn't it?
There was this thing on Facebook I saw. It was really cheesy, but it did have a good point. And I don't even think that their point is the same one that I'm going to bring up, but the way I like to envision sanctification.
Have you heard of the site Jesus Daily?
Is...
Do you remember them? Are they still around? Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. Sorry. Is this big bin full of ping pong balls, and sanctification is, sin and God are kind of mutually tied together, and it's you pour the water in, and it's gonna overflow, and the sin is just going to disperse as you pour more God per se in.
Right.
And that's the way I kind of like to envision it, is like just the sin just kind of will naturally go away. I mean, of course it takes work, you know. I'm not going to act like it's easy like that, but
yeah, it's an oversimplification, but it is somewhat true. Yeah.
As a broad perspective of sanctification, that's how I like to look at it.
People get mad at a lot of analogies, like, no, because, and then they bring up specific things. Like, I know, dude, it's an analogy for this specific moment here. Yeah. Our sin is not a ping pong ball. Like, the analogy runs out at some point. It's going to be all right. So, that's been, all right, that has been the struggle, though, and I think part of it is this understanding that where sometimes it takes our actions a bit to catch up to our theological understanding. And oftentimes as a person is growing in faith, there is a massive inconsistency between a person's theology and a person's practicality.
Right.
And I've even talked about, I don't know if I've ever talked about it on here, the practicality sniff test of theology, of a person claims a thing either in theology or all of us just need to be given 110% of our income to God. And I'm like, cool, I get what you're saying. Now let's filter that through the practicality sniff test, and it fails immediately.
Yeah.
I cannot give 110% of my income. That's a math thing. I get what you're saying. Reword it. Let's be good.
That's it's not possible.
That's not how percentages work, you know?
Yeah.
So, but there is this inconsistency oftentimes between our theology and our behavior that I think as a church can get really dicey to it's because there's so many Christian truisms and kind of tweetable things. I mean, people claim God is sovereign, but I want to control it all. Like, well, you know,
right. I mean,
you know,
and this comes from, like, we got this kind of topic from, it was a tweet from who again?
We stole a tweet from someone who quoted someone else. All right, no. Let me find. It was JT English, and he was quoting a pastor in L.A.
This is Danny's favorite person ever. He talks about him all the time, and he's a big fan.
I mean, I'm not disagreeing with anything you're saying.
Yeah, the guy is super smart. I've listened to like the podcast he's on with you, and you know, super. What is it? Village Church.
Village Church with JT. Sorry, it's their podcast, Knowing Faith, with JT English, Jen Wilkin, Gem of the SBC, who they need to keep very happy because she's amazing, and Kyle. Oh no, Kyle's great too.
Kyle something. Sorry, you don't get your last name.
Mosaic Church. Anyway, it's a great podcast. Check him out. But JT, Pastor English, I don't know, had been
Pastor English.
He's been quoting this guy and said, "Our proclaimed theology is often different than our functional theology," and just the more we read that, it just kind of, the weight of that, it just kind of sat there, just like,
right.
It was immediately convicting, in my opinion, for a tweet, you know.
Exactly. I mean, like, it's so true, and kind of, I mean, I think it happens for multiple different reasons, and I don't think that it's always like the same thing per person. But,
no.
You know, I've found growing up in church, for me, it was kind of. That always happens when you want to fit in, and you're like, oh, I gotta have the same theology as these people, or else, you know, it's kind of, you know, I'm not gonna fit in. So I gotta proclaim that, oh, I'm this, and this, and I believe this and this, but even though I don't internally, and it's such an interesting concept because I feel like that's the first time I've ever heard that said, and that's why it was so like convicting. It's like, whoa, I mean, that's
our
true.
Practical theology. So it asks the question: if I never spoke, what theology do my actions proclaim?
Right.
And that is a bummer of a question. Like, I don't know how else to put that. That question's a bummer. And it's an important thing to ask, because if I do think God is over all things, then that should change literally how I approach all things. And that's, that's a hard one, you know?
Yeah, and I think part of it just comes from our like earthly perspective on things.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I love God.
Mm-hmm.
That is a statement that I say, and I know to be true.
Right.
But sometimes internally, like, there are days where I'm just like, I'm just not having it. And I got to pray and be like, God, help me love you more.
Right.
And, and that's, like, kind of a case, I guess. It's just us being imperfect in our flesh, kind of being, like, severing what we believe.
Yeah.
And that's something I think everyone works through. And then there's just so many different reasons that this could happen. That's why I find it so interesting.
Personally, I think it's a misordering of the proclaimed, the felt, and the acted. To me, and they're not even really Greek, but there's orthodoxy. Is ortho coming from the Greek prefix, correct. A doxy meaning doxology, or proclaimed, spoken kind of thought, in essence. There's orthopraxy, that's correct action or praxis, and there's orthopathy, correct kind of feeling. And these three things, I think, post-modern culture has gotten these horribly out of order, because we tend to start on pathy. And I'm not saying orthopathy, I'm saying we start on my feeling as the definitive indicator of truth, because everything I act on, I feel is true, or I am psychotic.
Right.
And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I mean that as a foundational of action. If I act on a thing I think is untrue, then that's crazy. So people tend to start on pathy, and then push that straight to action, and then build action, or then out of action they build the thought and call it orthodoxy. Right. And that's so backwards. Orthodoxy has to come first. The thought, it has to be built on actual true faith, or truth. Sorry, it has to be based on truth.
You can
and that gives us
shorten that by truth.
Truth. It has to be built on truth, because truth has to define truth. And if a thing is true, it's true, even if I don't feel it's true. But the feelings I have to be defined by truth, and then out of those feelings comes a burning passion to do the things of God. That is orthopraxy. And I think the order in culture is, I feel this strong, therefore it must be true, and I'll act on it, and that's dangerous. And has even gotten a fair amount of Christians in trouble, because they feel that God wouldn't do blank. And because of that, they are creating a God that has taken actual truth out of the equation. And although they claim God is this, their actions are proclaiming another thing entirely.
Right. Yeah.
God does care about all people, absolutely. Now, here are things God finds sinful and against him. And you have to take those things as equal truth, because they are both true. And oftentimes the church has either gone, well, I'll slam people for this, or I'll just love people, and it's been a hot mess on both sides. Yeah.
For sure. And
on the one side, you got people telling everyone they're going to hell, and on the other side, you got people telling everyone they're going to heaven. Both of them are wrong.
Yeah. I think, it's kind of going off what you're saying, is it's important to think things through before you proclaim what you believe. And I think this is kind of oftentimes something that is, like putting someone in the ring too early. Is something that you talk about a lot, and that's kind of I feel like this goes along with that. Is like, we don't have time to think things through. And then we put like these younger people on this podium, and like it's it's not healthy to their faith.
No.
Because they're still being molded, and
they're rock star communicators. What's their theology like? Have they been tested at all? I mean, are they consistent? These are questions that don't get brought up as much as they should in a pastoral setting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's scary.
Yeah.
But, I think it always goes back into just we're all going to be imperfect. I mean, and this is going to happen
right
all the time.
Right.
I mean, and I know I've done this before. I know you've probably done this before. I know you're a lot more settled in your views now than probably when you were younger. But
am I? No.
No.
Really? I'm actually. Gosh, I don't want to say I'm more lazy about them, but like, man, I've talked to some people in their mid-20s who are really geared for a debate, and I'm just like, I just don't care. Like they've been very passionate about, and I'm not trying to poo-poo that passion, but it's just like
poo-poo.
I just don't feel as if the importance of the minute topic that they're coming down hard on is as important as they feel.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, it could be that. Like, there are just a couple times they were trying to draw something out of me, and I was like, I just don't.
Yeah.
I gotta have dinner later, and I don't want to, like, still be here emotionally.
Right.
I mean, I know the things I hold, and I hold to the primary doctrines. I'll make time to fight for those. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
If someone comes up and says, like, I don't think Christ is fully defined, let's go! Clear my schedule. We're doing this today. And I mean, I'll hammer those if they want to get into those. But if there's like, I want to debate the age of the earth, well, I don't. Like, I really don't. Like, all right, I'll just ask God when we get there. I think that's the most appropriate answer is like, can we just ask God in eternity?
Yeah.
Yeah,
there's stuff like that just doesn't matter.
But I'm open to. There have been a few things I'm still kind of like thinking through, in figuring out the way I think about them. I mean, over the past.
Right.
When was that? It was like August of a year. I probably became a bit more Calvinist because I studied grace a bit harder.
Right.
I'm still not taking the title because of reasons we've thoroughly talked about on this podcast. But if I do think God is sovereign over all things, that does actually affect how I view my role in the process of salvation.
Yeah.
And so theology does affect that because how could it not?
Right.
If God is over all creation, well then how am I being a steward of God's creation now as an emissary of Christ in the world?
Yeah, that's it's definitely true. And I mean, I think sometimes it is fine to not have everything figured out.
Yeah.
I think the main things, like you said, are primary doctrine. And I think everyone's pretty quick to be like, yeah, I mean, like, some. I don't want to say everyone, but
still get a few.
Most people. That's not universal, but most people are pretty quick to be like, okay, yeah, Jesus died for my sins, and like he is the Savior, and he is God, but man at the same time,
right?
And like all these different things.
And if I don't give him my best, nope, you lost me. You got it. We out, deuces.
And like. Sometimes it's fine to figure, and like I said, like I'm still figuring stuff out.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to be genuine.
Right.
And to like, I keep on cutting myself off, but I have this new thought every time. But like you said, Calvinism, like I would call myself Calvinist, even though I'm still working through some of those things, because I have this feeling that like some of the things are true. But I'm still working through it, but it's not like I should be like, you should be genuine about that. Like when I say I'm a Calvinist, I shouldn't be like, I believe all these things, solid, 100% when I really don't. Like,
right.
It's okay to be like unconfirmed in what you believe.
Right.
And I think more people need to be more genuine about that. Like when approached about a topic, it's okay to be like you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't really know, and I'm just gonna leave it to God on that one.
Personally, I think it is important to be real about it, but also be teachable about it. Because truth doesn't originate with us. Truth comes out of God, and there are people that have devoted time and energy to pursue the truth of God in order to teach others. And if I can't be taught by them, then I've just created a God of myself.
Right.
And I don't. I'm not trying to say pliable with discernment. Can I say that?
Right. Yeah.
I mean, if I need to be honest, but also I need to be willing to be corrected. And there have been plenty of times I've been put through that. Actually, I had a professor. He was a theology 1 professor. I turned in a 10-page paper or something. Had a lot of fun going through it. I think I still have it in here somewhere.
Somewhere in here.
I made graphics for it. I was so pumped to be doing this paper. And my professor wrote so much on. I think he wrote more notes on my paper than I wrote in my paper. Just like this, and I saw him at a point in there. He either had to take a break, go to sleep, or change pens because the red ink got whiter and whiter. And then at some point, it was back to hard red again. So it's like he needed a break, he needed coffee. Like, what is happening? And he just gave the counterpoint to everything in there and things I hadn't thought of that I had to think about if I was going to pursue this thought any further. And then and he always put the grade at the end, so you actually had to get through the comments to get to it. And I'm like, that's garbage, but all right. And still got a 91 on the paper, but it didn't feel. It was so challenging, it didn't feel like an A. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
It's like I have a lot to think about, even though when I turned in the paper, I was confident. At the end, I needed to be a bit humbled to say, I don't know. I know some things, and I need to be able to explore other things and other perspectives under the umbrella of Orthodox Christian faith. By Orthodox, I mean correct thinking, and not Eastern Russia.
Right. I mean, I think that's super important. I mean, that's convicting to me. Like, especially, there is the school that I went to during high school, Classical Conversations. I mean, it was good about that, but like the thing is, like, everyone is so smart in there and like so firm in what they believe. Yeah. And it was fun to challenge each other, but like. There's times where, it's time to just be teachable. Yeah. And that's kind of my one. I mean, my mom's gonna kill me if she listens to this. My one gripe was that like everyone is teachable, and except for some things, and it was like their theology. I think was the main thing. Right. Is it was more acceptable to debate than to like actually listen and learn. And I think that there's
debate's a long-term strategy. It's no one changes their mind in debate. I've never seen a person midway through the debate go, blew my mind, that guy. That like I've never seen it. I've never seen it happen.
Right, yeah. And there's things where
my shirt if some guy went, nah, that's a real good point, like,
and debate teaches good things, like you do have to listen to debate well. Right. But you're not listening to change your own views.
Yeah,
you know
what
I mean?
To disagree.
And like that's what I'm trying to say is like there's a difference in the type of listening. Yeah. And I mean I think it just comes with age. Like all of us I've noticed that like my friends as we, grow older, I mean we're only a year out of high school, but there's this more acceptable, just kind of talking to just talk and not debate and just kind of explain and talk about views on things and know that like you're not always right. Yeah. And I mean I think that's why I've found myself dipping into Calvinism is like when I first was listening to all these things I'm like, oh no. That's
Calvinism
not true.
does take the pressure off of having to be right all the time, because you just get to go, I don't know, God's sovereign a lot. And I do appreciate it for that reason.
Before I was like
God's
Calvinist per se. I hate the word Calvin, and I think you've kind of made me think that it's kind of annoying. But I'm just gonna use it because you know what I'm saying.
If it's true, it's true. Just let it be true. Just call it Christianity at that point. Sorry, go ahead. I'll get the soapbox next episode.
When I was first introduced to it, I was like, no, that's all bullcrap. Sorry, but
54.
And, mainly because it took all of the control out of my hands.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that.
Yeah.
And, slowly but surely, it just, started eating away. Mm-hmm. And I'm like,
Yeah.
And then I'm like, what if that is true?
Yeah.
And, and
yeah.
I'm still working through it, like I said before, but...
I will say, just based on a thing that you brought up, as a person that has... a bit of my church history, and I think we'll get into this more next episode too. I taught my first class at 12 or 11, 10, something like that. Mm-hmm. I've been in church ministry since I've been 10. So I've been on college staff. I was then a youth pastor, all these things, and now I'm old. Full stop. Now I'm old. And I've watched me grow, and then a decade after that, watch people in a similar situation grow, where they spoke very emphatically and strongly, and they were in their early to mid 20s. And I know we even talked about this, the late teens, early 20s, you get a taste of authority, and you feel on top of the world, and you speak very definitively. And just at some point, you kind of go I just don't care. You just this, I have to fight every battle. And then as you get older, you're like, I only have so many battles I can fight. And
right.
And part of that is, it's kind of the jokes about the first year Bible college students. That's just people between 18 and 22. They're very firm in the thing that they don't have a lot of clue about. I've had people try and debate me, pull me into things. Not you. You're beautiful. You're beautiful and the best.
I doubt that's true. I know I've tried to debate you before.
No, you're not the one I'm thinking of, though. I had some guy who openly told his small group, there's a lot of Danny Burton's theology I just disagree with. And I'm like, first of all, do it to my face. First of all right. Second of all, which parts? Do you want to do it? Do you want to go? But I just...
Dang, you got named.
I never engaged it, because it was just I just don't... Sure, God bless him and what he's doing. If he wants to do that, that's fine.
Right.
It just, over time, I think there's a maturity that comes over time of bringing things I know to be true and actions into alignment, that just occurs over time, because you're not a perfect Christian straight out the spiritual womb.
Right.
I haven't decided if that's deep or gross.
I think...
Is that a deep statement or a gross statement?
Gross.
A little bit of both. Buy that on our t-shirt on our website.
I mean, I think you bring up a good point, and I think I find myself, I was talking to one of my friends from high school, and I don't really, get to see them or hang out with them that much, just because everyone kind of left town, and for college and stuff like that. And I've noticed that I don't really have any friends my age, and I think that that's part of. They're older. Let me clarify, not younger, but that's part of my reasoning, subconsciously, is that I learn so much more from people who are older than me, and can
Thank
observe.
You. I'm sorry. That was the turdish thing I could say. I'm so sorry.
It's true. I learn a lot from you, and I feel like I'm going to be able to avoid a lot of things due to learning stuff that people have been through. Gangster. And I'm kind of a special case, just because I don't know why I enjoy hanging out with people who are older than me. I'm 19, and the people I hang out with are the age of 26 to 30.
Right.
it's kind of weird to like say out loud, but
thank you for thinking I'm between the ages of 26 and 30. I'll pay you later.
I mean, you know what I mean.
No. Yes, 30.
But I learn a lot more, and that sounds like kind of like I'm just have these relationships to steal all the tips and tricks of life. But I mean,
no. But here's the thing: for anyone that's between 18 and 25, find yourself someone who's been through it, because they want to tell you. I mean, Evan and I talk all the time because he's like, I have Bible questions. I'm like, cool, cancel my day. Let's totally do it. If there's ever Bible questions that you're texting over, I'll call, because I'll be like, I'm so excited.
Right.
We want to share this generational aspect of community by just saying, like, these are things I've grown in, and here they are. You can disagree, which is totally fine, but you got to disagree biblically or through scripture, through truth. But we want that to happen. I think if too many people between 18 and 25 get in a room together, it's just too much. I love you. Too much stupidity in one room. You have to balance that out by generational. You have to balance that out in a generational community that comes together to hold each other up.
100% agree. I 100% agree. I mean, I find that there's times to hang out with people your age.
Yeah.
But if that's all you're doing, you're just going to be stupid.
Right.
I'm sorry to say it. You're just going to be stupid.
It's called groupthink, and it's largely frowned upon in all communities.
It's literally.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think that it is important, like with my discipleship group, it's like a huge age range from like 40 to, I like just joined. I like how I'm already calling it my discipleship group.
Yeah, man.
But it's like a huge age range from people like, I mean, I think I'm the youngest one in there, but once again.
Find yourself that old wise dude in the church and just shut up and like let that man speak.
Yeah, and it's important.
I was a Christian during the Depression. Cool, tell me everything. Like I don't mean that derogatorily or that accent, regardless of what it sounds like. Like I want to know can I have your brain, please?
Yeah. And it's not only important, kind of like wrapping it back into our actual topic that we got way off track on.
We have notes, we don't use them.
Like that's kind of been super helpful to me to figure out what I believe and to find places that it's okay to state what you believe even when it's not a full thought.
Yeah.
Places where it's not going to harm somebody and it's important. Just find someone older than you and talk to them.
All right. I'll bring up one and then we'll close. I'll bring up one thing. As I was exploring theology very early on, that I got immediately corrected by someone because I was thinking through. I was watching a lot of anime at the time too. This will all make sense in a moment. Where I was thinking of so I was trying to understand the devil. And his connection to God, and I was thinking it's this battle between Jesus and the devil, which is not true. It's not a battle if Jesus can beat him in a word. I am. Not really a battle, but to say it's like, wow, it's kind of as if he's battling his brother in this head-to-head type thing. And I was texting a person who said like only begotten son. I'm like, that's right.
Yeah.
Only the one. Okay. Immediately brought that back, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's an anime plot where it's like, yes, brother, we finally found each other again. Like, that's an anime plot. And I was like, okay, yeah, that doesn't apply here. Good. And now, to my current employer, that was very early on. I was in my early 20s, and it was just a fun thought. It lasted 6 minutes.
Sure. Sure.
So, no, I mean, I still get corrected on stuff, too, which is totally fine. So Matthew, did we answer your question? I don't know. I think we did.
That's kind of like every episode we have a question. We're just like, did we answer that?
Should you sin less? Probably. So get on it. No,
you sinner.
That's not.
Quit sinning,
that's
you
not
sinner.
The lesson of this at all. Get on it is literally the exact opposite of everything we said.
Chop.
If anyone else has questions that we will do our best to answer, please feel free to go to thegospel.com/nobodyspecial. There's a form at the bottom to fill out. Say hi, ask Bible question or advice.
You can also follow us on at the Nobody
on
Nobody
Facebook
Special
and Instagram
podcast. Right? Is that right?
Nobody Special Podcast on Facebook and Instagram.
Right there.
Yep.
You can see it if you're watching YouTube. Follow us there, and you can also DM us there if you want to ask questions. Yeah.
Yeah. Audio comes out on iTunes, wherever else you're getting podcasts, or a YouTube the following Tuesday. We're also on Spotify and other things that shan't be named.
We can't say it, and if we do, we have to get a face tattoo.
We have to get face tattoos.
That's the running gag.
Yes. Gosh, we're going to come in with face tattoos one episode.
Oh, gosh. Just anyway. Post Malone it up.
Yes. Thank you for going exactly where my head was at. I was like, don't say Post Malone. Caleb will say it. Got it. So, well, Caleb, I think that is going to do it for us today. I'm Danny.
And I'm Caleb.
And we are Nobody Special.